If you found this video, you need to stay ahead of the game. Maybe you have a winning record in fantasy, maybe you don't, but this is a guaranteed video that will get you into the fantasy playoffs. So here are the players you need to be selling high on that are ticking time bombs on your roster. And you guys know I hate to waste people's time in these videos, so if you're not subscribed, hit that button. It will absolutely save your season. We already have 5,000 goats. And I'll also give you guys some potential trade packages to get these guys off your team and acquire good buy lows, which nobody else ever does. But again, let's lock in with the very first sell high of the video, being Brian Robinson, a guy that a lot of people aren't expecting to be on this list, but he is surely a ticking time bomb, and let me explain why we need to get him off of our roster sooner rather than later. And this might come as a surprise because some people are holding on to his early season value, but his usage and time on field is tanking. And it might not look like he's been that bad. He put up 8 points last week, 14 the week before that, then 8, then 13. Pretty decent. I mean, he's not been that bad. He's the RB12 so far in the season, but if we look into his stats specifically, you can tell why we need to get rid of him. And as a Commanders fan, take this from me. His usage has been dropping lower and lower and lower. If you look here, he has almost 20 touches a game through his first couple weeks, and that's slowly been tanking. And lucky for us, we got saved by a touchdown in those bad games that he had that keeps him sellable, and his fantasy value is still decently high for the people that do not watch these videos. Despite having a very favorable schedule over the past 3 weeks, he's still only averaged 15 yards in total. And the reason for this is because the Washington backfield, well, there's a couple reasons actually, but the Washington backfield is becoming a 3-man committee. And you might be looking at me and saying, whoa, why is it a 3-man committee? What is he on right now? Yes, he's splitting the backfield with Antonio Gibson, but now Chris Rodriguez is in the mix, seeing 15% of the snaps every week, and that will probably climb a little bit as well. And again, you might be looking at me saying, Avery, why are we worried about a 15% snap share? That's essentially nothing. This guy is definitely tweaking, but the reason for that is because he's not just seeing field time. If he was just on the field not doing anything with it, it'd be one thing, but he saw 7 carries last week on 15% of the snaps and 4 the week before that. Now, is this some crazy upside guy that we need to go get on our roster? No, not at all. But he is 1000% a thorn in the side of Brian Robinson if he's gonna take some usage alongside Antonio Gibson. But on top of that, the Commanders just aren't a team that run the ball very often. They're 23rd in rushing yards, 29th in rushing attempts. Now, half of this is because their defense is so bad, they have to pass a lot to stay in these games because of their defense. And the other half is the fact that their coaching staff is just terrible and their offensive line sucks. But none of that really matters in fantasy football. All that matters is the fantasy points you can produce. And Brian Robinson, once he stops scoring these touchdowns, there is no value you're going to be able to get from him. Sell him high while you still can. I would be looking to trade him for guys like Ramondre Stevenson or Kyron Williams, and that really depends on how high your other league mates value Brian Robinson. You could get a guy like Deontay Johnson, but for me, his value is around a Ramondre Stevenson right now. Moving on to another guy we need to be selling high on again sooner rather than later is Zach Moss. And I've been saying this for a while, but again, people are starting to get confused. For some reason, for the past week, everybody's been coming to me saying this is a 50-50 split. It's going to be a committee. Zach Moss has a role. He gets this. I don't know what we're talking about here. Nobody values JT for anything, apparently. He's a 24-year-old running back in his prime, a top 3 paid running back in the league. There's no reason they wouldn't give him a bulk of the usage, even from a business perspective. It just doesn't make any sense. But people are stuck on the fact that JT has been in this offense for 3 weeks and still hasn't seen over a 50% snap share, but that is completely expected. All you have to do is look at Zach Moss's projections over the next few weeks and see that they are plummeting completely. He doesn't have any season-long value. He might even be droppable in the next coming weeks. And as the season goes on, JT will get a bigger role, and he probably won't see his full snap share and usage until their bye week in week 11. But Zach Moss's snaps have decreased since JT's comeback and his usage as well. Moss has been on this team for a while. He's played in the absence of JT before. He's never been anything more than a handcuff running back who won't be startable in the coming future and can probably be dropped. So let's get any kind of value while we can for him still. Again, if you can get guys like James Conner, Kyron Williams, Garrett Wilson, most definitely do that. Get him off your roster. I know it's going to take a little bit for this backfield to completely go to a true identity, but Zach Moss does not have any kind of role. Maybe he'll still be involved with like 20% of the snaps, but nothing important. And feel free to do a 2-for-1 trade with any of those guys. It doesn't have to be a 1-for-1. But if you've made it this far in the video, make sure to be subscribed. This video and all of them like it will help you season long and help you to win a fantasy championship, because that is what we're here for. I would love to have you guys a part of the family. But moving on to another sell high candidate at running back here is James Cook. Again, this isn't a conventional sell high. James Cook is operating in a committee, and we have to be aware of that. He's only averaging a 50% snap share the entirety of the season. Yes, he gets decent usage on it, but it severely caps his upside. And you have Latavius Murray seeing 40% of the snaps, when you have Damian Harris seeing a good amount of the snaps when he's not on IR as well. Again, running backs by committee severely lower the floor and ceiling of the entire backfield, and we don't need to be buying in on these guys. I get James Cook is a young upcoming running back that we all want to succeed, but he doesn't get any red zone usage at all. That is exactly why they signed Zach Moss and Damian Harris. They've been controlling that red zone usage for the entirety of the season. That will not change. James Cook has solely relied on targets out of the backfield to be reliable, and he's been getting very lucky with the timing of those good games. He has one of the lowest usage rates in the entire NFL in the red zone. He's had one of the easier fantasy schedules so far this year for running backs, but it only gets harder from here. He has a tough schedule ahead, and he has a pretty bad fantasy playoff schedule as well. I would be looking to sell him before he has one of his bad games and he just is not sellable and has no value. I don't like running backs by committee. It's why I have Brian Robinson on this list. It's why I've never really been into the Ravens running backs. It creates an environment where there's no room for growth and improvement in snap share or really any kind of usage for the entirety of the season. And that's really what we look for in running backs. Not to mention the rumors that are going around that the Bills will sign a true RB1 before the trade deadline. Well, I think that's going to happen? Probably not. James Cook is a young, exciting guy. I do think he's a pretty decent running back himself, but he's just not in the best situation to succeed. And we want to be using our roster on guys that have the potential to be better season long later down the line of the year, and I don't think James Cook has that potential. So if you can trade him for a clear upgrade like Devonta Smith, like Devontae Adams, like T. Higgins, again, like James Conner, go ahead and do it. You can package two guys to get one. But another sell high running back that's a bit more of a situational guy, he isn't the regular sell high, is Kareem Hunt, and this is a short-term value we can take advantage of because his hype is so high right now after the Jerome Ford injury. Jerome Ford left last week's game in the fourth quarter with an injury. He is now being seen in a walking boot, and apparently it is a high ankle sprain, and if we know anything about these injuries, they are one of the hardest to come back from for running backs because these kinds of injuries for running backs get aggravated very easily. They are hard to come back from. You can't rush it, so he's going to be out for a couple weeks at least, but that has put Kareem Hunt as the prime RB1 moving forward. Now we need to be selling on him. Now this isn't because he's not going to have some kind of value. He most definitely will have a role in this offense. He'll be the RB1. He'll get pass catching. He'll get the goal line work probably and some rushes, but his hype situation and value is probably never going to be higher than it is right now. Pierre Strong is a real running back. He's probably going to lead this team in rushing attempts while Jerome Ford is gone. In Ford's absence, he saw 8 carries, but Kareem Hunt saw 10 carries and 2 touchdowns, scoring 15 fantasy points, which completely elevated his value. This is a split 50-50 running back by committee. Do I think he'll be the lead back in the committee? Yeah, Kareem Hunt probably will be. But when Ford comes back, inevitably in a matter of weeks, he's going to go back to the RB2 and be borderline droppable again. So if you can get any kind of real starting value for Kareem Hunt, maybe take the L in the short-term trade, but take a complete W in the long term, you will be the winner of that trade regardless. But there's also some rumors that the Browns are going to go out and sign a running back. Now that Nick Chubb is out for the season and Jerome Ford is injured, it is a real possibility that they go out and sign a guy. And with Deshaun Watson having an MRI and possibly being out for a very decent amount of time, this offense is not very valuable. PJ Walker isn't the best quarterback. I'm selling high on Kareem Hunt for any kind of actual starting value we can get season long. Possible guys like JSN, DeAndre Hopkins, Joe Mixon, even if you can get a package for him, Kyron Williams, all guys that you can target for Kareem Hunt if you put another guy with him. But another unconventional sell high that we need to be taking advantage of while he still has some decent value is Donta Foreman, and this one is huge. If you're going to take any of these and you have him on your team, trade him right after you watch this video. In the weeks that Khalil Herbert is out, he's averaging 17 total touches a game, 4.5 yards per carry, 3 receptions, and a touchdown. He essentially looks to be used in every single aspect of this offense, but his value will quite literally never be higher than it is right now after scoring a couple touchdowns and 33 fantasy points. But he's not a guy that the Bears want to use. He's been sidelined all year since week 1. He saw 20% of the carries, and he essentially got cut since then. But this is complete fool's gold by all means. He has absolutely no long-term value, and Roschon Johnson does exist. With Roschon and Khalil Herbert both injured, he still split carries with Darrington Evans. And both of these last 2 weeks where he's been the starting only running back in this offense, he's had 2 great matchups, all leading to why his value is so high. Roschon Johnson is coming back in week 8 and will slowly be worked in. It will take away from Foreman's usage, but Roschon Johnson still is the clear-cut RB2 in this offense. But we've been blindsided by a whole bunch of injuries, and we think he's some kind of good value. The Bears running backs have an insanely hard rest of season schedule. It's not going to be easy for them from here on out. Once Herbert comes back, once Roschon comes back, he's going to be the RB3 again and probably be worth absolutely nothing. Justin Fields will get a majority of this rushing work and vulture some rushing touchdowns when he does come back. So if we can trade him for any kind of value like a JSN, like a Jonathan Mingo, like a Rondale Moore, or even a Dalvin Cook in hopes that he gets traded somewhere, we need to be doing that because he will 1,000,000,000% be droppable in a couple weeks when all these running backs come back. Again, you might take the L on the short term with these trades, but in the long term, you are fleecing. But another guy we need to be selling high on at the running back position is Alexander Mattison, and this is a guy that had absolutely zero value once the news of Cam Akers broke. But then they played together a couple games. Alexander Mattison still saw a bulk of the carries. Everybody calmed down a bit. Nobody really cares anymore, but he is one of the biggest sell highs of the year. Since the Akers trade, Mattison is still averaging 60% of these snaps. He's getting 10 carries out of the backfield every week. Not anything too different from his regular usage and snap count, but last week against the 49ers completely changes this all, and let me explain. Mattison split this backfield 60-40 again with Akers, but the thing is, Akers saw more usage, more carries, and more touches. And this completely sparks the downfall of Alexander Mattison because in the last 2 minutes of this game, it was a complete close game the whole way way through. In that 2-minute drill, when all of the touches and the time on field mattered, Cam Akers was the guy consistently that they rolled out. He got every single snap. He was the running back they used to close out the game, and this is not good for Alexander Mattison. Obviously, you guys know I don't like committee running backs, but Cam Akers has carved himself a legitimate role. Cam Akers has been seeing more and more usage since he came to the Vikings. He's getting involved in the receiving game as well. He's not involved enough to be a startable guy that we can pick up anyways off waivers in general, but he is surely a guy that is tanking Alexander Mattison's value. All of this on top of the fact that the Vikings are one of the worst rushing offenses in the NFL completely. They are bottom 5 in every single rushing stat imaginable. They are last in rushing touchdowns and second to last in rushing attempts. They are just simply not a rushing team. If you don't have the high upside of a high rushing team and you're in a committee backfield, you don't have upside. This is a very scary situation. You need to sell Alexander Mattison before Cam Akers has more value and usage in this offense and everybody notices it. You can sell him for guys like Devonta Smith, Chris Godwin, or any running back I've already named. Get him off of your roster. But that is going to finish off this video of the guys you need to be selling, the running backs we can't have on our team. This is a very important video, but I appreciate you guys watching all the way through, and I'll see you guys in the must start and sit videos coming tomorrow.